anymore?
It's definitely a pyramid scheme, though. But you go into it knowing that.
Yeah. What's not a pyramid scheme in
That's
life?
true.
Is your insurance company a pyramid scheme?
100%.
Right? Does it have a big company at the top
Right.
that has agents?
Absolutely.
What about your Verizon bill, right? You know?
I'm an AT&T man, but shout out to
Yeah,
AT&T.
AT&T, right? What's AT&T?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
What's an authorized agent in town? Then you could go and say, I don't even have a dollar on me.
It's multi-level marketing.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Well, it's the biggest one of all, turn your dollar over. What's right there? A pyramid.
That's right.
To tell you. Look, this
There's
is
a scheme.
Yeah. Do you know Monopoly was invented to help teach people about the economy?
I think I did know that.
Yeah, during the Depression.
I think I did
And it
know
lays it out clear. And where the real catcher is the bank can't run out of money.
Right.
That's what you need to learn in life.
Sure.
The Fed never runs out of money.
That's right. And when they do, shit hits fan.
Right, and which is right what we talk about now. What if it happened?
How do you play that game? Because I didn't realize till very recently,
Right.
having children of my own, didn't realize it very recently, like, there's rules to, like, any time you land on a space, if you don't want to, in the rule book,
Right.
if you don't want to buy that space, then it automatically goes up for public auction, and it gets auctioned off by the bank. So it makes the gameplay quicker, because those spaces are getting owned quicker,
Yeah.
so you can actually get property for lower value than what is listed on the board.
No,
And I never played that way.
I
as
never
a
played,
kid.
but it's a perfect example, right? It's built to teach you how.
Right. But
I
there's
mean,
way more levels to it than what we ever played.
Yeah.
Just roll the thing, land on it, go to jail, whatever.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, there's way more.
we're showing our roots here, right?
Yeah.
What we relate to is going to jail.
Yeah.
Buying property was never part of our.
Never bought a hotel, none of that stuff. It was collect the loot and avoid going to jail, which is really a big metaphor. So.
No, it's just you can take a boy out of shutdown. You can't take a shutdown out of a boy.
Exactly.
Well, this is a perfect introduction to the very first episode of FM Mission. We are setting it. Is this Shutdown technically?
Maybe.
Right.
So there's a lot of argument, I guess, or there's a better word than I can't come up with right now. But there's a lot of disagreement maybe on what exactly pertains to Shutdown. I think typically anything south of Memorial would be Shutdown. Anything north of Memorial, this is what, Avondale.
Thomas Park,
Thomas
Avondale.
Park,
Yeah.
Avondale. That came about later.
We're sitting at 8th and Hoyt, literally at the corner, y'all, in Muncie, Indiana.
So this would be Avondale. No one ever called it that.
Yeah.
When I grew up over here, like there's Shedtown, there's Boxtown, there's Avondale, Forest Park. The real gist of it was just all a bunch of poor people, working class poor people, and so it's all kind of Shedtown. There's people who lived in Shedtown proper, who like my family, who worked to get out of Shedtown, and then there's people who really pride themselves on Shedtown, and I'm gonna live and die here type of thing. So it's close enough to Shedtown to call it Shedtown.
Well, again, for the introduction, I'm sitting with Jarrod Case, one of the owners of the Guardian Brewery. And
Not an owner of the Guardian. Just
Okay,
work for the
yeah,
Guardian.
clarify. I was going to ask you this. So, how long have you worked for the Guardian?
Well, the Guardian opened in 2015. Bill Kerr and Jason Phillips. Jason and I have known each other since kindergarten. Bill's his brother-in-law. They were home brewers. My business partner and I, Kyle, were home brewers as well. And they opened the brewery over in the White River Plaza.
Yeah.
Little small 2-barrel brew house in 2015. They were maybe open 2 months before I really started coming on full time. I was there kind of from the beginning, from when they first opened, of kind of helping them retool and saying, hey, I think you should do this, I think you should do that. So Kyle and I came in originally as their R&D department. Bill and Jason were more traditional style brewers, old world styles, pretty straightforward. And Kyle and I were way more out of the box, like putting Wix pumpkin pies in beers and like doing crazy stuff with beers. And so kind of melding those two worlds together. So I've been with them since 2015, actually on a volunteer basis, just trying to help them get the business off the ground. It was a business I believed in, something I wanted to be a part of, and it was friends of mine. And
so I was asked, how do you get the R&D job at a local brewery?
You do it for free. That's how you do it.
But there's so again, I want to. That's a great introduction, right? From Monopoly to Shedtown,
right?
and those principles apply in Shedtown, right?
Absolutely.
I'm sitting with Jarrod Case, again, one of the guys who's been with the brewery since the beginning. And the reason I invited Jarrod was Guardian Brewery. This is a mission these guys have been on now for how long?
Since 2015, so
5 years.
Yeah.
For 5 years, they've been
longer. I mean, before we even opened. So.
Well, that's what we're going to get into. Is I want to know how do guys sitting drinking beer in the garage making home brew end up making a brewery like Guardian Brewery. That's what tonight's show is going to be about. So hold that thought.
I can give you all that.
Yeah,
sure.
And that's exactly one of the things for the listeners that I want to do. Like I told you before the show, right? Is you have probably some nuggets of goodness that could save wannabe brewer tens of thousands of dollars.
Sure, hopefully so.
Yeah.
Hopefully so.
But the Guardian Brewery, it's a local brewery here in Muncie, Indiana, 514 East Jackson Street. Now it's in the Mad Jack's facility. Like I said, when you started out, you were over in the White River Plaza.
Correct.
And we'll come back to that. But these guys, one of the reasons I had Jarrod on for the first one, this is the FMMission podcast, and it's for people on a mission. I was telling Jarrod, and Jarrod knows, and I known each other long time playing
Longer
music.
than I should admit, probably.
Yeah.
We're not that old. We're young men.
I mean, I'm not sure. I turned 43 the other day.
Right. A lot more grays now, man.
Yes. And we knew each other through the rock and roll scene of Muncie, Indiana. We grew up throwing shows, around here, and kind of into life. We turned into old men, like you
That's
said,
right.
and started trying to make things. And I always liked when one time I talked to Jarrod long ago. You were doing the punk rock prom at Doc's Music Hall.
Yeah, back when you were on Doc's. Yeah.
And you were talking that night about it. You wanted to make something cool that you wanted to do, right? And
Sure.
to find things like this in Muncie, as we know, can be tough, right? I'm a
Absolutely.
believer in Muncie. You are, obviously.
Absolutely.
We're not here to trash Muncie at all, but really
No.
showcase it.
Really a believer in wherever you are. Like,
Yeah.
like I've had that same mentality really since high school, and a lot of the things that I've brought here or that I've done here wasn't an original idea or something that I came up with my own. I was somewhere, saw it, or saw a variation of something, and
Yeah.
went, this would be really cool. And I don't want to travel 2-3 hours to have to go do something.
Yeah,
like
you don't want to drive to Chicago and go to
like we have people here who do awesome stuff. Let's just do cool stuff here.
Yeah.
And so kind of taking those ideas and just applying them to Muncie.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I've always done, right? Even when I took over, Doc's, is I brought back the ideas in Charleston that I went out and thought, man, this needs to happen in Muncie.
Right.
We need to have a venue like this. And I actually, this is another whole episode, but I actually, had originally bought Doc's by reading the book How to Buy a Business with No Money Down.
Nice.
And man, it said if you see places that are doing cool things that need help, that's the kind where you can approach it and find an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And so there's this cool venue in downtown that just needs a little help.
Sure.
So we'll get into that. And like I said with Jarrod, he told me that was a mission of his, right? That's what he was doing. That's what the punk rock prom was, and it always stuck with me when I was trying to craft out my sound, my brand, right? Is do things, Mike, that you'd want to go do, and don't worry about the rest of it.
Absolutely.
Because that's what you're going to want to go to.
And there's other people out there that want the same things that you're wanting, even if they don't know they want it yet.
Yeah, and some don't want it.
Right.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Not everything's for everyone, man. That's a motto of the Guardian Brewing Company and all of us guys, is not everything's for everyone. It's just...
Which is one of the things I want to go into, because I believe, exactly what you're saying. And I know you guys, right, take that, but do what you do well then, right?
Sure.
That's the...
Absolutely.
So we'll come back to that principle.
Yeah.
So on the brewery, you kind of told me the same thing, right? Like, I want to create things that I want to hang out in, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's what tonight's... I gathered you were telling me in what I call FMMission. And FMMission is for people on a mission in arts, entrepreneurship, or activism. The common market where we're sitting here, just like you said, this came from an idea in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I walked in, I was like, am I playing in a grocery store? Right? And we were.
Right.
And this little kind of hipster grocery, the same thing, right? Taking those ideas. And so the kind of mission, right? That's the kind of place I wanted in Muncie. I said, man, I would love this in Muncie. There's old buildings everywhere.
Right.
And hell, they're probably paying $10,000 a month in rent there. You know what I mean? It's Charlotte, North Carolina.
Absolutely.
But the same thing with you. And you made, when I left for Charleston after Doc's and Folly Moon, there was no breweries really happening in Muncie. New Corner was starting to do a little bit. But, when I come back 5 years later, to play one night,
Boom.
there's, Elm Street Brewery, Guardian Brewery. Back in my hometown of Fairmount, now there's Bad Dad Brewery.
Doing great stuff as well, yeah.
Yeah, right. And so it's happening, right? People are doing just what you said, and so that's what I want to share today. So that's why I invited you for the first episode.
Well, I appreciate you having me, man. Happy to be here.
Thank you. I'm glad you took the time, right? We were trying to get this down in between everything going on.
We're busy guys now, Mike.
I know, right? we can't just rock and roll all night and play drums all day, can
Man,
we?
I wish I could, but I can't.
We'll get back to that another time.
Yeah.
So tell me about kind of this mission then, right? I mean, you live here in Muncie, grew up here, right, in Shedtown?
I did. Grew up in Shedtown until I was 12. Moved to the north side of Muncie. As silly as it sounds, it was a huge culture shock. Completely different socioeconomic class. Exposed to a different type of person, essentially. Schooling was different. People around me were different. And kind of got the best of both worlds in that regard.
Yeah.
Worked for an art store here in town. Just my whole life.
What was that art store?
I'm gonna get to
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But yeah, my whole life I was actually telling another bartender of ours. It's like a really boring Forrest Gump story. So when you say like a mission, like it was never like, I don't wake up in the morning and like hash plans and write things down.
Like I do. Right? You're not. That's not the same kind of mission.
No, different kind of mission, man. It's just
Right.
it's more like I try to not to get too into it.
No,
but
that's what it's
I
for.
try to be more leaf in the stream kind of guy and just kind of go where it takes me and apply myself where I can. So worked for the art store, the Gordy's Art Mart at the time. I think I was 12 or 13. Won an art competition. So in 7th grade maybe. Won an art competition here in town in the Gordy's.
Yep.
I went to school with their
Gordy's
son.
Fine Art Company here in Muncie, Indiana.
When the Gordy's still owned it, they recognized something in me and kind of took me in and was like, "Hey, we'll give you free art lessons if you want to sweep the shop every day," type of thing.
No kidding.
And so I ended up being there for 11 years, working for the Gordy's.
So when I first met you, you were working at Gordy's.
Yeah,
right?
I worked there all through high school and early 20s.
Yeah, you were probably 22, 23 when I met you.
Bartended as well and did other stuff like that. But was really just focused on the art thing, kind of was exposed to that world, which is a far cry from Shedtown. I mean,
It is.
It just is. Not that there's anything wrong with Shedtown.
We're down. I'd lived downtown Muncie before. I'd lived in the Old West End, but and I called this downtown, and many people corrected me.
Yeah,
right?
it's not downtown.
It is a different world, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
When I drive out to the north side of town and come back here, I realize they're two Muncies.
There's actually probably more like 4 Muncies.
Probably so, yeah.
Like if you really get into it as far as the needs of the communities here, you
Yeah.
have your southwest side of Muncie is completely different than your southeast side of Muncie.
Yeah, it is.
Central Muncie, and you have campus, which is its own insular thing.
Yeah.
University, and the northwest side of Muncie is completely different than the northeast side of Muncie.
Yeah.
And so it's really like
It's like the boroughs, man.
it kind of is. It's
I
like,
love Muncie,
it's like
but
5 or 6 little towns, communities that all centralize around a one downtown area. Now, for a long time, it didn't.
Yeah, and we'll get into that later for
right.
sure because.
But now is around the downtown. But yeah, I was just saying, working for the Gordy's, doing that thing, being exposed to that world, coming from blue collar roots, very working class, Appalachian basically. A lot of the people in Shedtown are migrated here to work in the
I
factories.
absolutely see it.
And so grew up with a lot of that, and then being exposed to this whole new world, and a matter of things from like Hank Williams to Echo and the Bunnymen. You know, I mean, that's like a huge. That's the worlds were colliding for me.
Yeah.
But I was able to apply. I think able to take all that in and apply that to create something else, and then realizing like, oh, I'm not abashed that I'm from there. I wasn't ashamed of being from there, and that was a part of what made Muncie cool to me, was that it had a place like Shedtown, and it had a place like downtown, and it had a place like campus. You're being exposed to academia life and kind of being in all those worlds.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I still love Muncie to this day, and what brought me here from Fairmount, right? Which, Jarrod, if you're not from Indiana, Fairmount's a tiny little town about a half hour away, really in another county.
Home of James Dean.
Home of James Dean.
Home of Garfield.
That's true. Both of them. And they got a sign out there still to this day. And Garfield, Jim Davis actually came to Muncie, created his whole Paws. And for me, when I came over when I was 21 years old, I had a choice. I could go, I was back home from hitting the road and being crazy, and I was like, well, I could go to Marion, I could go to Anderson. That Muncie's always been pretty cool.
Right.
And so I came to Muncie, right, because everything you just said, I didn't think I would find those other places, and hadn't been out a little bit. Kind of like you said, right?
Sure.
I knew these things existed. I didn't want to.
Right. I think a lot of it has to do too with university. You have all these transplanted people coming and going.
Yeah.
And which bring their own bag of things that they're into and experiences.
Culture.
Yeah, absolutely culture. But with the locals embracing that and the university embracing the local community, there's a lot of crossover there. So I never really felt like disconnect for me. And in any of these neighborhoods or places, I don't really feel disconnected from it, from any of it.
No, I do too.
You know what I mean?
This is one of the reasons I love Muncie, right? There is something, like
common thread through all of it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I can't really articulate that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a common thread in all of it, and kind of being exposed to everything, man. It's like it's a little microcosm.
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, that's a cool intro to Muncie. A lot of people here see me talk about and post about Muncie, and obviously this is where we've been investing for a long time. If you've been following this online, the common market itself, and it's because I believe in it, just like Jarrod said. That's like I said, the mission I wanted to kind of talk about, and I like what you said earlier, that for you it's not like get up and make notes right in your journal.
It's not a plan.
Yeah, and for me it's an absolute plan. I can pull a piece of paper over here that would make you maybe just anxious looking at it, right?
I mean, I have a plan. I have an idea in mind. I'm not a very end goal oriented person.
Yeah.
Never have been. It's never been like I do X, Y that I'll accomplish Z.
Yeah.
I really like living in XY, like the experience of doing it, the experiences like this,
Yeah.
meeting new people, kind of going where the flow takes me. That's what I was getting at. Like, I just randomed into this art store job. I random into a bartending gig, and just was interested in things. Start meeting people that I'm interested in the same things that I'm interested in, and random into bands, and random into records, and random into touring, and then went and worked in the corporate sales world for 15 years, and I was totally random.
Yeah.
Like,
we'll get back to that in a second. Like,
So-
you said something there that I thought is a part of probably how you got, like you said, you found these passions and pursuits is being interested.
sure, just being
Right.
curious.
So that's what got you into beer, right?
Absolutely.
So you got into beer, right, like all of us did, and now you're a part of a team, that has a brewery here locally in Muncie. How does that, right? I mean, where did you even get the idea that you would like to work in the beer business,
Sure.
particularly in Muncie? Right? This is not a typical idea.
Right. Well, Muncie's so weird when it comes to craft beer specifically.
Yeah, it is.
Muncie's a very weird town compared to other places I've been to that have breweries or have a booming craft beer culture. And the reason why is because of the Hurrah.
Yeah,
In the
absolutely.
early 90s, this beer hall opens in a decimated downtown Muncie where there's really nothing but drag queens and drug addicts.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, there was just not much.
Yeah, yeah,
going on.
I mean,
there was a dominatrix shop and some punk rock squalor,
Yeah.
But other than that, you have the Hurrah Beer Hall. And it's really a credit to Stan, who brought in these great beers from
Yeah.
all over the world.
He
And
did.
Back then, it wasn't even really craft; it was more import. And you had a few small breweries like Sierra Nevada was
Yeah,
still small,
absolutely.
New Belgium, and so we were bringing in some of these American craft beers, but most of it was these crazy imports from all over the world. And so, being a young adult, I should say 21, but it wasn't. But being a young adult,
You're
and-
good on that now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I think
We are.
like statute limitations
Yeah.
is worn out for all of us. But back then, like the best thing you could get craft beer wise, or what we considered craft, was like Killian's Irish Red
Yeah.
or Honey Brown.
I remember when
like
both those were
these.
craft beers, right? People started,
Yeah.
at a dead show, you get them in the lot.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
a Honey
Or
Brown.
Newcastle Brown Ale
Yeah.
with the punk rockers drank, and so that's the kind of stuff we grew up drinking, and then being able to go into the Hurrah and having these guys in there that really knew their shit.
Yeah.
Who
No, they did have a love of beer, like you're saying, and it made a
Absolutely.
culture here.
It did, and so, but it stunted the brewery side of it because there was really no need for it. Like all
Yeah.
the great beer you wanted was at this place here in your hometown that was nationally,
Yeah, no, recognize it.
at least regionally recognized as a great craft import beer hall. And then when Chris and Brian left there and opened the Fickle Peach,
Yeah.
they're bringing in a whole different thing. They went more to the American craft with Bell's and Founders and,
Yeah.
and New Belgium and bringing these American craft brewers. And so you're exposed to that. And then Joel leaves the Hurrah, comes out of that same breeding
Yeah,
ground and
absolutely.
opens Savages. And
All
so-
this was about 1 year after I had taken over Doc, so I watched everything you're talking about, right? I watched these guys go start,
Right.
And I watched this downtown transformation literally from the cockpit.
Sure.
It was
And
the craziest thing.
So like akin to like music, man, it'd be like living in a town with like the Stones, the Beatles, Hendrix, and like the Dead all live in your town, and you're the kid who just picked up a guitar, and it's like, what the fuck am
Yeah,
I
you
gonna
say
bring?
that on
What
air.
am I gonna bring to this, And so that's where the craft beer thing was.
Yeah, so that's a great point right there too, right? When you're talking about this, is that is quite an obstacle here if you're honest about your business, right? When you're getting started, right? I mean, there's just that niche is pretty well served.
Yeah, what am I gonna bring different to this community? What am I gonna bring different to the market in general, not even just in Muncie?
Was this part of your guys' thinking, right, in the plan?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I can't really speak for Bill and Jason. I can a little bit. They were huge Hurrah guys. I was early until Chris and Brian left, and I was really good friends with Brian and
Yeah.
really good friends with Chris, and so we still support all of them, but
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely we're more on that bandwagon because they're buddies of ours and closer in age and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
they're a lot cooler than Stan. Right?
Yeah,
I haven't
Stan's
tried to
got
talk
his own
Stan's
guy.
nothing, isn't
Yeah,
it?
he was an older guy.
Yeah, if you want to support somebody, right?
Right.
Support people who are kind to you.
And they weren't. I mean, Stan's not coming to shows. We were
Yeah,
hanging
yeah,
out
I was gonna say, there's
afterwards.
nothing,
We all
bad,
partied together.
right?
So we were kind of more in that vein. Kyle and I were, and so Bill and Jason started brewing at home. You could ask them someday, but they'll tell you. Mainly for them, it was cost driven. They were spending all this money at the Hurrah, doing the 100 beer card, 500
Right.
beer card, and they're like, man, this is getting outrageous. And kind of started looking into like, could we brew our own? It can't be that hard to brew your own beer. And they started brewing beer at home. Simultaneously, Kyle and I, separate of them, were doing the same thing just for fun.
Right, for the passion of brewing beer,
Yeah,
like drinking it.
Yeah, just fun, you know. And like, I think I can make that, or I have an idea that something I haven't seen in the market. So at the time, like Kyle and I did, which actually became a Guardian beer called Icramoro, which was a blood orange pale ale. And I happened upon a source for blood orange, and like, hey, we should try to do this beer, and it turned out really well. And at the same time, Jason and Bill were doing all these home brews really well, and like a lot of people, they had a fan club of friends who were like, hey, you should do it, for better or for worse, you know. And so they actually had the stones to open the small brewery, and Kyle and I saw that as an opportunity, like, hey, they're already doing this, and here's where we think in their business model that we could come in and do something completely different than what they're doing and add to, not necessarily improve, but add to. And we all come from different backgrounds. Me, except more the grassroots music, with an art background, and doing graphic design and marketing. I mean, as a band person, like, it's all hustle.
You have to market whether you like it or not.
Yeah, it's hustle and networking, and then working in corporate sales for 15 years. I learned those tools as well.
Yeah.
And then coming from a mom and pop store, art store, I learned the mom and pop world, and I learned this corporate world, and how to apply both of those to it.
Yeah, because they're both very important, right? They serve different functions.
Absolutely. Kyle was more of a logistical guy. He's a guy you could have some wild, crazy dream, and he'll figure out how to do it.
So let's bring that in. If you got a team, right? If somebody's out there and they got 2 or 3, it's right. You need a team almost.
Absolutely, that's what I was getting at.
But teams are hard.
They are.
Right?
It's like being in a band.
It's like being in a band. I tell you, it's like being married to 5 people, but you can't have makeup sex.
You have to really learn. We can. It depends what you're.
Not with all 5 of them, right? You know what I'm saying?
Hey man, I'm not here to judge. You know, you do you.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree, but what prudence and wisdom has taught me, you'll have more problems than less.
I think you will. You'll go to the Fleetwood
That's
Mac.
just, if you're listening, Fleetwood.
You'll Fleetwood Mac it.
You know,
they made some great things.
Yeah, it's funny you say Fleetwood Mac. So the Beautiful Mess's goal was not to be the Fleetwood Mac of country music. I shit you not.
How'd it work out?
We're still together. That's it.
Keep it up, man.
And if one day it means I could hire Mike Campbell to come be in the band,
right?
Like
Mission
Fleetwood Mac
accomplished.
did.
Mission accomplished. But yeah, I was saying, but we all came kind of from similar backgrounds, but different backgrounds, similar cultural backgrounds, but by complete happenstance.
Keep talking. I'm just grabbing coffee.
Yeah, I'm doing it. By no plan of anybody's, we all just kind of came with something different to the table of what we brought to the business, and where we thought they were lacking in the business or areas they could improve on the business just happened to be that Kyle and I had strong suits. Right. Kyle had his logistical, more engineering mind. I had more creative, artistic marketing mind. Jason, our one of our main owners, comes from an accounting background. He was a CPA and is.
And so this wasn't by design.
No, and
essentially you're talking about the core functions of a C-suite,
absolutely,
right?
Yes.
A CEO, a CFO,
absolutely.
COO.
Absolutely, but we're talking really low level,
right.
Opening a small time thing, and Bill was more mechanically minded. The dude can build anything, fix anything.
Did he build the brew system?
The first one, yeah. The first one was definitely his design. Built that, and they opened the little 2-barrel. System. So
let's start right there, because we're getting like practice. And I love what you're doing. Everything you're saying is great. And for people listening, I want them to be able to take 3 or 4 good nuggets of goodness out of here right today and go, hey, I think I know what I need to do next.
Sure.
And so that, going back to this, you guys, the love of beer, and all you're talking about the culture that Muncie had, right, which was fostered this, with the Hurrah.
And the idea for us was just having, I think primarily, even if we're being honest with ourselves, it was just to have a cool place to hang out in. Honestly, a boys' club. A clubhouse.
Yeah, this is kind of the mission.
Yeah.
Right. Even though you're saying it wasn't necessarily like
we didn't have a goal in mind to be Budweiser.
Right.
We still don't have that goal in mind. That's not who we are. When we first opened, it was, hey, we have a cool place in town where you can get a locally made beer. It's made here by people who live here.
Yeah.
And it's just a small place to hang out. And we were completely overwhelmed in the best way possible by the community support that we got right from the get-go. So we kind of had like an 18-month to 2-year plan, what we wanted to do, and economically, financially, surpassed that like month 6, and that's what afforded us to move to what we're doing now. But originally started with the 2-barrel system. For everybody who's looking to get into a brewery, I think what you need to ask yourself first and foremost is what is your mission? What is your goal of this brewery? Do you want to be a small nano brewery where you have 1 or 2 beers of your own? Are you going to have guest taps? Are you going to be open 7 days a week? Are you going to distribute all this stuff? This is something we didn't ask ourselves. We just
really
hit the ground running.
Which we're all guilty of, right? When
Absolutely.
you start. I mean,
yeah, you didn't know any better. You know? It's just this is.
But you guys didn't come at it like that.
Yeah, you just go for it. And so Bill built this system, and we realized pretty immediately that it was not sustainable to where we were brewing, 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day. We have 4 different people brewing. Because every time we brewed on that 2-barrel system, we're only netting 4 kegs. So a standard keg is a half barrel. 2-barrel system gives you 4 kegs. And so trying to stay open 7 days a week, serving beer over the bar in plastic cups, was like, hey, we can't sustain this. And actually the first 2 weeks rolled into Thanksgiving, and we luckily were able to use it as a guise to close for the weekend because we were out of beer. We ran out of beer.
And there's worse problems to have.
There is. But it is a problem.
Right.
If you're going to have a business, you have to have product.
Yeah,
and you have to have
absolutely.
Product in the
I always
market.
tell a coffee shop, no coffee don't work.
Absolutely.
Right.
And people will put up with it for a minute and say, oh, it's really good, but I can't get it. I'll quit trying.
Yeah.
So we were kind of able to retool what we did there, and immediately started looking into how can we scale this up. And really, that's when our main focus of what mission, as far as what we wanted to be as a brewery, really came into focus, and we were able to put pen to paper and actually formulate a plan to get to where we are now and long term
It's
as well.
really necessity, right?
It was.
Kind of facilitated it.
Yeah. And it was,
So
do
we
we
run
want
out
to
and
stay
go,
this?
oh shit, we're successful.
But do we want to stay this? And there's nothing wrong with that. Do we want to stay this brewery? Do we want to stay this small nano brewery that just does this constantly rotating of beers in this little clubhouse setting with 45 people occupancy? Is that what we really want to do? Is that the end goal, just to kind of do that? We all had full-time jobs.
Right.
We just kind of want to do this on the side as a hobby. I was all in from get-go. Like, we're going to run with this. I want to do this full-time. I love it. Love doing it. Love being there. Love every aspect of it. Kind of talking about my old jobs prior to that, I feel like it was every experience that I had leading up to that, at least career-wise, has pinnacled into this company that I'm able to take these tools that I've learned from a mom and pop and from the community stuff and from bands and from corporate world and apply all those to a real live business.
A great point with what you're saying there, and I did the same thing. Coming up, I worked in sales, or I did construction, different things that really showed me different parts of business. And so there's some people out there listening who aren't even close to being able to take the jump to business yet, right? And they're still trying to get there. And from the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, he talked about working in things that educate yourself, not only pay you. Right? Kind of what you're saying, right, is this along the way, part of your education, right, has really been these real world experiences that you took to.
And just being passionate about something, not really thinking about the paycheck or the payday, even if it is a hobby.
Right.
Whatever that may be.
No, being passionate about something is where a mission comes from.
Absolutely.
That is a big point. And that's kind of what this is. A lot of people are passionate, but right, they're scared to take the jump, like you're saying.
Sure.
Right.
And I've been that way my whole life. My mom jokes around about that. Like,
That you've been scared, or you just go for it?
I just go for it.
Me too.
My whole life.
I didn't figure you were scared.
No, and just super curious. I've always been, and I hope I never lose that. It's I think one of my greatest assets, and I try to instill that in my children.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just curiosity and trying everything.
That's what drives the whole mission of FMMission, right? Is to be curious.
Absolutely.
And take action.
That's 100%, man. That's 100%. And so I've kind of always been that way. And if I didn't know it, letting my ego down enough to be like, I don't know this, and being able to learn from somebody else. If you know everything, you learn nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So being able to say, I don't know this, and then find the best people that I could find around me that did know, and learn from them. And
I'd like to follow up on that. That's so true that I found in business that when I finally realized I don't know, and I need to go figure it out.
Yes.
Right. And I need to find somebody that does know, because somebody does know. They're successfully running businesses.
Right. And they may not know exactly what I want, but I'm able to take something from it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
apply that to whatever it is I'm trying to do, for better or for worse.
Generally, it's one or two things that are kind of just not working, right? In a business where you're looking at, man, I just need to tweak this. But if you've never been in the trenches, it's hard to know.
Absolutely. And it's very easy to get blinders on, and to have your blinders and saying, this is the way we're going to do it, and this is what I want, and not being able to adapt and change. And especially if you're in a retail business, or like I am.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get to choose my demographic. I don't get to choose my market. People who like our product like our product.
Yeah.
We say like our Res IPA is our flagship IPA because it was our first IPA that we released. But really, Rainbow Pop's probably our flagship. It's our most well-known known beer out there. And so
I've been laying here in the cooler for months.
We don't even get to choose that. You know what I mean? That's all up to you. So you got to be able to let that stuff go.
That's a very interesting point there, right? And you hear this within music, right?
Absolutely.
An artist that the single that took off, you can't that one.
You're right. Exactly. Or just your fan base.
Yeah.
You know, you're going out and you're used to playing for a certain group of fans as you're coming up. And you're playing in the same clubs and the same kind of people, and then when something hits, and then the masses get a hold of it, and then you have a whole wide variety of people that are now liking your stuff, and it may not be people that you'd really connect with, or that
being in country, right? I find this quite often, right? That some of the people that relate to my music because it's kind of anti-authority, right? This punk rock kind of country is that the people that are there. Aren't always people that agree with me politically at all.
Or people that you would even really associate with as far as like a hanging out situation. Which I like to think that I can associate with anybody. You know.
Me too.
You know I think that's important for business side too, though, is being adaptable and putting all your personal stuff aside. Unless you're really standing for like an activist, you're really taking a stance on something.
And I would like to say on that, you ought to really think, right? I mean, when you go to take a stance on something, know that you will divide.
This is what I'm saying.
The crowd.
And I think it's admirable.
Yeah. But no, it will divide the crowd.
Absolutely.
Rick Rubin said, "Great art divides." And that's true.
That's 100% true.
I'm out of here.
Yeah, my dad just walked in, y'all. Everything good?
He keep me, so
I'll come talk to you in a minute.
we'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah. He's been at the hospital, all good, just getting some testing done. Right? Dad and I are the ones that kind of my dad and I lived in this building for 2 years,
Nice.
And showered down at the Planet Fitness.
That's the Mike Martin way there, is buy a business and live in it.
It is, right?
I mean, really.
Yeah, so for the mission, and it is, that's what I did at Doc's. So what you find is that the biggest expense, and this is what I was saying about the common market in general, is the biggest expense that anybody has, if you look at their household budget or their business budget, it's really the same thing, right? If you think about a household, it's just a business of a small tribe,
Absolutely.
right? Trying to maintain and grow some wealth.
Absolutely.
Not even if you're not a material person, right? Like, you've grown up, like you said, if you've ever been around poverty kills.
Yeah.
Right? This is just a harsh reality of life.
Absolutely. And I mean, we live in a world, we're in a capitalist world where you have to have, even to survive, you know?
Right. People love the Guardian, but the minute, right, you guys quit paying rent,
Yeah, you're out the door.
right.
Exactly.
Hey, thanks for trying, right?
Right. And that's what I was saying, like, our goal, we kind of had this finite goal of what we wanted to be, the size we want to be.
Yeah.
And back to the beginning, somebody is wanting to open their own brewery. First and foremost is not necessarily your culture, not necessarily your image, or
Right.
your vibe or your branding, any of that stuff. But like, what is it exactly at the core that you want to bring to wherever you are, to the community? And we retooled that, like I said, within the first 6 months, and said, we want to be regional, but we don't want to be Bell's. We don't want to grow past this point. There's a brewery out in California called Russian River, Northern California, and for years they had the #1 IPA in the world, voted Pliny the Elder, most sought after beer out there. And they would release it. They only sold it there in their tap room, only in their region.
Right.
And people would travel there, like Mecca, to go get Pliny the Elder.
Absolutely.
And they were making plenty of money, and they had a small brew house. And multiple times were asked, like, why don't you move this up and scale this up and go full mass production, and you could make like $1 gajillion.
Right.
And that's too much for us. Like, we don't want to do it. We don't want to manage it. We're comfortable where we're at. And we're running a business that we want to have, and a business that we want to be a part of, and we don't want to be a major brewery. And there's nothing wrong with being that major brewery.
No,
there's nothing wrong with being the small 2-barrel system brewery. But it's really having an idea of what it is.
Absolutely.
And I think that applies to any business you're going to do, from a retail.
Yeah, no. If you want to be
grocery
successful,
store
that's the first question, right? Is what is it and why?
But I think a lot of people get bogged down in the image of it. They get bogged down in the branding. And I've got a cool logo, and I've got a cool name. And it's going to look like this, and it's like, you really got to get to the bed of it, of what it is you're wanting to do.
And to bring that on back to like the FMMission I, like you're saying, right? It's just what all that is important, but you could go on Fiverr now and walk out with a cool logo for anything,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, it's just the facts of life.
Absolutely.
And this is one of the things I learned in the early days the hard way, right? Is if you're not built for long-term sustainability, but then you're not going to get what you want out of it.
No.
Right? And it's going to cause more damage and problems, more, emotionally even, right? Because it's tough to get your ass kicked out there in the world.
And I think you think too, like there's always the flash in the pans out there in any business, any world there is. From what I've learned or seen or experienced, that flash in the pan seldomly has staying power.
Right. And I think you're very, that's what's got to get to with the mission. So what is one thing to take from this? How you guys have been 5 years since you've opened.
Right.
How long before you opened were
I mean,
you doing this in your...
Collectively, you're talking of decades of brewing experience. So I brewed maybe 5 to 8 years before even getting to a point feeling like I should open a brewery or I should work at a brewery or
So you're a decade and a half into this.
Right, before anything even got started in that regard, let alone thinking about actually going to have a business. Because the original Guardian, although it was a business, it didn't feel like a business. And where we're at now, and not in a bad way, we are definitely a business now. You know, we have employees, people that work full time, depend on us. You know,
It's a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot of responsibility. Right?
That was one of the mistakes I made as a kid. You just, like you said, your mom said you would always go. It was like, for me, I'm ready. Right, let's do it. They'll have to kill us to stop.
I like that idea though, and I apply that to life as well too. Like indecision to me is like the biggest fault you could ever have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Say that again, please.
Indecision is the biggest fault you could have. I would rather, because you're going to learn something from it. I would take action. Make a decision. Hopefully nothing too nefarious, you know, but make a decision that you think is the best decision.
Make research, right?
Yeah.
But don't make a life of research.
Right.
You're going to have to take action before it all looks good on paper.
Yes, take an educated decision. I mean, some of those are no-brainers, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, don't decide, like, heroin's for me. Like, we've seen how that worked, you know what I mean?
I don't disagree.
As a business decision or as a life decision, make what you think's the best decision. Approach it as it's the best decision.
Right.
And you're going to learn whether it was or not.
Yeah.
Whether it was a bad decision or a good decision, and being able to adapt and change your stance on it, or change your views on it, or change the logistics of how it works, and you're always going to have that.
Right.
Even if it's the best decision in the world,
absolutely,
you're always going to run into snags where you're going to have to retool and renegotiate or renavigate what you're doing. And so not making a decision is time wasted and opportunity wasted.
And you can't, like you said, you're going to have to make it, because to be right or wrong, you have to make it. If you don't make a decision, you're definitely wrong.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just a fact.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Michael Jordan thing. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So make a choice, and then attack that choice and adapt on the fly.
Well, you know, one of the things we've done here in the neighborhood, the Plank Brothers, right? So when we got an opportunity to it, the money was very right, because it's an old junk building.
Sure.
I mean, unless you're crazy or have a bunch of money, and I definitely don't have a bunch of money, it doesn't make a lot of sense because it needs a roof, $40,000-$50,000. But again, it makes perfect sense just if you could pull it together, right? Action.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there trying to make the decision, right? And I'm going through my thing, right? And I do make notes and goals, prayer, all this, and going, all right, God, is this what? Should I pull the trigger? Because once I do it, right, now I've got this clusterfuck down here that's a couple acres, an old factory, right? Some kid could get hurt on it, right? Somebody, I mean, there's all kinds of things. But I have to make a decision.
Absolutely.
If I'm going to get the Plank Brothers.
But you're doing it mindfully, and I know the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but you're doing it mindfully and with good intent, and taking all the proper, within your power, proper steps necessary to get to where you want to be there. And yeah, shit will happen, man. I'm sure, and you'll learn how to adapt to that. But you're doing something.
Let's tie that back to what you're doing as we kind of wrap it down. I want you to tell a little bit about what you're doing. Right? Describe your beers, and so when you got along the way, everything you've said has made a lot of sense. If you have real quick one piece of advice for somebody, and you said, right, understand what you want to be.
Absolutely.
What would the other thing be? If you thought you want to be in the beer business, what is the thing that has caught you off guard?
I don't really know, man. Like I said, I think again, surround yourself with people that know more than you.
Yeah.
At least it worked for me. Like I always.
Well, that's real advice, right? I mean, if you come here looking for the gold, that's it.
Right. I always I want to in life be the stupidest guy in the room.
Yeah.
Like always. You know.
Yeah, no, I want to be the worst musician in the beautiful mess.
Yeah,
and holding on by the seat of my pants, right? Because
that makes you better.
Yeah, I can hold on, but barely, because these cats can do it. But
right. It's worked for me. I'm not saying it's the best model for everybody else. Some people are naturally gifted, born with whatever gift that they have, and they're able to run with it. Most of us aren't. Most of us are just normal people.
And if you want to do something on an epic level, whether that's locally, right, like taking a brewery, knocking off the chain in your hometown, right, or go be, so you're going to have to need the cooperation of a lot of people.
Absolutely.
A lot of people, right?
Absolutely.
Getting permits to deal with employees, having, partners, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the nature of the game. You have to be.
You can't go it alone for.
No.
I mean,
you'll get beat by the competition.
You'll get beat by everybody.
Everybody's the competition, then, right?
Life.
Yeah, everybody's competition if you go alone.
It's just not sustainable. It's not for your own personal health, your own personal well-being.
Right.
It's not sustainable. I'd like to think I outwork everybody, but it's.
No, I mean that's my mantra, right?
You know what I mean?
That being said, I feel it.
Yeah, but I can't do it by myself. Even at 80, 90 hours a week, I still need a whole team
Right.
of people that know a hell of a lot more than me to guide me and help me and assist me. Or
That's a great point. Again, just so we're 80, 90 hours a week, that wouldn't be enough if you had to do it on your own.
no.
Yeah.
Now we're to a point now to where we're working pretty normal week out.
Right.
Working normal hours. But
How many 80-hour weeks did you put in the first 5 years?
Oh, geez, man. Like, especially moving to the new place here, there were a lot of 16, 18, 19-hour days.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're talking about we're building this place, and we did have a construction company that came in and built a good majority of the infrastructure stuff. But as far as the finishes, the painting, the logos,
Right.
building the actual brewery itself, that's all the stuff that we did. Bought this equipment, and it comes in on a flatbed truck, and
Yeah.
I figure it out. It's
Yeah.
real. It's here.
Yeah, and no, it's not put together.
No,
right? Not at all.
That's where Bill comes in super handy, and his dad, who passed away last year.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Rest his soul, but he was a facilities guy for years and worked in factories as a facilities coordinator, and so did Bill himself. And so they're
Gotcha.
They're electricians, they're plumbers. They know all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so huge for us, huge asset, huge cost savings. From hiring a plumbing company, hiring an electrician company, these guys are certified to work for us.
Yeah.
Who are able to do
No,
that.
that is huge, right? And so that's one of the ways that any small company, right? You have to bootstrap somebody. I mean, you got to know what you don't know,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
But if you got some people in there that do know, right? That's a game
It's
changer.
a huge game changer. That's what I was saying from the get-go. We all kind of assembling that team, even though for us it wasn't a conscious choice to assemble that team. I guess in some regards, a conscious choice for me seeing a whole and saying, okay, I know this guy, and this guy who could do that really well, and I do this really well, and you guys do this really well. Why don't we all do this together? Because Kyle and I could have very easily, because we were kind of in the same precipice of where they were going to open our own brewery.
Right.
And then once we saw our friends doing it, it was like, what's the point? Like, why would we open another one when we could kind of super group it or Voltron this brewery here and bring what we bring to the table? And just having those people on your team has helped us just tremendously.
You guys made a major impact, man, on downtown, right?
Appreciate that.
And it's now runs from Madison to almost to campus, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an unbelievable success story downtown Muncie. People we talk about, I said, man, you're not looking at it right. Go back and look at a 20-year-old picture of downtown.
Oh, yeah.
And you look at today, it is an unbelievable success story.
Different and still growing.
Yeah, it's
not done
still
yet.
growing, absolutely.
You have these software companies moving in.
Well, that's why I'm out here, right? Is when like you talk coming
no
back
real
from
estate. Why
Charleston.
we're on the east side of downtown.
Absolutely.
There's no room.
Well, and that's exactly what I did here is coming back from Charleston. I've shared this with everybody, right? Like this isn't a trade secret of what we do and why the real estate we do is looking at downtown Muncie. And I've got the Muncie map company map right
By
over
the
here.
peripheral.
Yeah.
Because there's only one way to go, and that's out.
Yeah, and so, if you look around it, there are 5 areas that actually touch downtown Muncie. And other than that, there's no more.
Right.
So you guys are on the one side, which Cornerstone and Magic's basically have.
Right.
Then you got
Street
the
has
Elm
that.
area, and Bill is dominating that area.
Absolutely.
The government and all the big money businesses now software companies, right? So
Yeah.
now the prices are through the roof.
Absolutely.
A couple $100,000 buildings, through all, which is a great thing.
Absolutely.
Right? But the 100, 200, 300, 400 block of Walnut, right, is off the chain.
Yeah.
And in a great way.
Can't afford it.
No, believe me, I was down there before it was cool. I know what what that is, and
Right.
that was back then. It was expensive.
Sure.
Today, it's real money, right?
I mean, back then you had a cool punk rock bar. I lived in a shitty apartment across the street.
Yeah.
For free if we did the work.
Yeah,
It
that's
literally
it.
had no walls.
And there was only 3 businesses, right? This was before the Peach, before Saturday. Like literally,
Yeah.
that happened right at this time.
Yeah.
But it was Doc's, the Vera Mays, and the Blue Bottle Coffee Shop across the
it.
street.
Yeah.
The whole downtown.
Yeah.
It really
we
was.
lived above the Blue Bottle.
Yep.
And had to put new drywall and floors in, live for free if we paid for it. So we renovated that, basically.
Yeah.
My roommate and I. And now I think it rents for like something like $1,200 a month or something.
I think it's a lot more than that.
Probably.
I think from
Probably
what I'd
so.
heard.
Yeah, probably so.
So doing that, if you and this is one of the things, if anybody's out there listening, that I encourage investment in Muncie, right? One of the reasons I want to have you on here because your guys' investment is, very obviously making a huge impact, and that's how we'll wrap it up. What Guardian is Muncie makes sense to invest in.
Absolutely.
People bitch about all these out of state people come in and buy the property. Well, like there's a reason, not because they like Muncie,
Right.
right? It's because it makes money, serious money.
Sure.
Easily because they're buying it so pennies on the dollar for real property.
Right. And that's a sad story too. I mean, it's where that came from, but it's reality.
Right.
And it's a reality all across the country. Is the Rust Belt, the manufacturing.
Yeah.
times have changed, you know, and you look at software and technology and medical. That's more where we're going now, and so you can either embrace that or you can buck against it. And you see communities around here that have bucked it, and you're seeing like Marion, for instance. Like there's nothing against Marion, but there's just nothing there anymore. And
no, if you go to just compare the two downtowns, it's like you're looking at two different countries.
It's Marion's where Muncie was 20 years ago downtown.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the universities helped with that a lot. You have people that come through with new eyes and see potential. Like you said, investors even come in and see like, oh,
right, like Accutech, right? I mean, somebody said this is where I want to put our company, dude. We'll kill it. And if you bought that company in Indianapolis, you're probably talking about $5 million, where they probably paid $500,000.
Oh, easily.
You know what I mean?
And you look like, not to get too much into profits or money or fiscal responsibility, but I kind of touched this on a minute ago about the flash in the pans. Like, you have to have a sustainable business model,
right? And
part of that sustainable business model is your working capital and your cash flow.
It's so important,
and it has to be sustainable. And I say this all the time. Like, for us, we could have a beer that pops off. We have whatever 500 cases of it, and it pops off, and we sell it all in one day. That's a great problem to have, but now I have to replenish that. And the faster that I sell that, the faster I have to replenish it.
Which takes more money.
Which takes more money.
Right.
And you're spending more money more frequently. And so our whole motto, and this really has been true from day one,
right,
is slow, sustainable growth. We want to have slow, incremental growth. 200-300% growth a year. Wow, that's amazing. We're not really looking for that. We want that slow, sustainable growth.
Right.
We want to build a grassroots brand. We want to learn and grow. We want to get our craft better. We're better today than we were a year ago, as far as our quality of our product.
Yeah, absolutely.
And constantly improving that product, improving logistically, improving how it gets to market, improving not just profitability, but as far as the brand itself, improving the graphic design, improving the image, the look, the brand, the mission, and constantly retooling and improving that, and making it to be sustainable, basically.
You know, we'll wrap it up on there and have you talk about the beers, because that's exactly when. And this is the first episode, and it's for people on a mission. Those missions are very different, depending on what you said. Wherever you're at, do what you do. Well,
I mean, they say be the change you want to see.
Yeah,
and
it's painted on the side of the building.
I would almost say be the cool that you want to see, man. If you think something's cool and you don't have it in your community, or you don't have it in your hometown, you don't have it in your neighborhood, wherever you are, do the cool thing.
Yeah.
Chances are, if you don't do it well, no one else has seen it anyways. You know what I mean? So that's all they know.
That's part of the FM way, right? Is fail forward.
Absolutely.
And that's literally paint on the side of the building, right? You change you wish to see, and it's true. Just like what you said, right? There is take the time and invest in what I learned from the docs, and like I said, this idea of sustainability is what I used to try to do in 2 years was really should have been 10 years, and I was just naive
and eager.
Well, and a lot of things, right? Then I appreciate that, and thank you. And you've always said that about docs. Like, man, don't forget it was really cool.
It was cool, and it was fun, and a lot of us cut our teeth there, yourself included.
That being said, right, that wasn't the point, right? So you have to also, the mission, and to do the mission, it has to be sustainable.
Absolutely.
So my investment in this community, a lot of people are, this is year 6, you know, that I've been down here living, invested right in this part of town, and it just seems like, oh yeah, they're down there doing that thing, but it took years of living in this building, right, to get there, and a 10-year plan. I'm killing it.
Right.
On my 2-year plan, I'm mad as hell. I'm frustrated. I wish I could do a lot more.
But you're showing growth, and if you look at year 6, where you're at, where you were year 1, and really put it into perspective, and you're like, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing growth.
We've done so much.
Yeah, you're right. That's and that's slow, sustainable growth. And so I guess that's just where I wanted to end off on kind of the business portion of it. That's one of the other things, right, is really put the due diligence in. To understand, and you said it's one of the things everybody hates talking about money and cash flow, but again, if you got a real mission, right, you're going to be sitting there wishing soon because you know you can't do it.
And absolutely.
I've been involved in so many of these over the years. The most good-intended, well-hearted do-gooders in any community trying with all their heart, but there's just no resource.
No.
Right, and you can't sustain the fire long enough if everybody burns out. This happens over and over.
Absolutely.
Noam Chomsky has a great thing about it, right? That's why change never happens. A generation of change makers come up, then they get old. Mm-hmm. Then the next generation comes up and acts as if they have no idea what the generation before was just doing.
Of course.
And they start just handing out flyers.
Right.
You know, and so that doesn't work,
They're not building upon what came before them.
No, exactly, right? They're not. And so to me, that's kind of what we're doing here is we're talking about how to build upon, right, what came before us, because that's what's sustainable. That's what
Absolutely.
Ball State does.
We talk about that even as a business, and sometimes it's more nostalgia or more hopeful, but none of us have a child that's above middle school age, and we've talked about this from day one.
Right.
Like, how cool would it be if we can keep this thing going long enough? If any of our kids ever wanted to get into this,
Yeah.
to where they grew up in a brewery and taking over a brewery and keep that going long term, building upon what we built upon, and changing the business however they
Yeah,
want
maybe one of them
change
really want
it.
to say, you know what, I do want to take it national because I
Right.
can build upon what my dad did.
Sure, and that's just not something we want to do. And and we're getting older as well.
Yeah.
And so we kind of have a plan for where we want to be and where we want to go, and just are making decisions towards that plan essentially until it doesn't work anymore.
Then adapt and overcome.
Adapt
Right?
and overcome. That's right.
Well, thanks again. I'm sitting with Jarrod Case from Guardian Brewery, and again, just sharing some great insight. And everything you said is stuff I've learned either the easy way or the hard way. Most of it the hard way.
The hard way, yeah.
The easy way on this came from a boss of mine when he said, Mike, you don't have time to make all the mistakes yourself. Learn from somebody else's mistake. I promise you, it will cost you too much to make them all yourself. And so that's, for the listener, what you get from this is, same as me, I've made a ton of mistakes. 5 years into it, you got all this beer here, you're doing something right.
Sure.
Take that insight and learn from, Guardian's mistakes get into. Learn from our mistakes.
Don't be afraid to make your own mistakes. Learn from those mistakes, make your own mistakes, just be able to overadapt or to adapt to those and to try to overcome those. Be open. I think a lot of people close themselves off in life, be it personally or professionally. They get the blinders on. This is what I want it to be. And that works for some people, but the majority of us, it doesn't. You have to be able to adapt.
Not long term, right?
Not long term.
And even 10 years isn't that long.
It's not. It's getting a lot shorter the older I get, I can tell you that.
And what you said about being willing to be wrong, I think that's a great spot to end. It is, you cannot be right every time. This is part of making decisions, right?
Yeah.
But you have to make the decisions, and what you do is try to not make the wrong decision more often, right?
Right.
You can't be right every time, but you can certainly be not dead wrong.
Sure.
Right?
Well, there's times too you make a wrong decision and it ends up being a blessing and ends up being the right decision.
Right.
But you would not know that if you didn't take action.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So tell us what you got the beers lined up here. For one thing, find you online.
Yeah, you can find us at www.theguardianbrewingco.com. We're on Facebook, The Guardian Brewing Co.
I'll have
We're
links to
on
all that.
Instagram, Twitter,
Yep.
Grindr. We're not really on Grindr. we're on all the social media stuff, posting daily, and new stuff out there all the time. We do a standard 8 beer lineup is what we normally carry in-house.
This was your business model?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have 8 house beers, and we rotate anywhere outside of those. We have the 8 on all the time, and then we keep anywhere from 14 to 20 beers totals. We'll have anywhere, from 10 to 12 different rotating seasonals. Still do our research and development crew,
Right.
so we still do some R&D beers.
I want to get how to get into that group.
Experimental beers, and that's always fun for us as well. And so we keep those going in-house. We don't distribute those typically. Those are done in-house. We do some draft distribution to bars and restaurants with some of our small batch stuff. But all of our 8 main beers are available all year round. We're working really hard to get those 8 into cans full time. So that'd be our Rainbow Pop, which is a New England Pale Ale, light, fruity. We do our Frank Coffee Stout, which we partner with the Caffeinery here in Muncie.
Absolutely.
Frank, the owner there, does a 3-bean blend for us. That was one of the first beers.
So that's actually made from Caffeinery
coffee
beans. Yeah. Awesome.
It's a blend he does for us. We do ours a little differently than most breweries that do a coffee beer. We actually cold brew coffee with beer instead of water, and so that's how we end up with this beer here. So it's not a blend. It's not we're making coffee, making beer, blending them together. We actually make the
You're
coffee.
actually cold brewing coffee with beer.
With beer.
I'm getting ready to start to have cold pressed coffee here in the keg, making it and reselling it. So we'll get into this.
Yeah.
I want to pick your brain about some keg stuff at some point.
Sure, absolutely. So we have that beer. We just came out with our Hey Stupid, which we've had in house forever. It's our house New England IPA, and that's available in cans full year round now too. We have our flagship IPA, West Coast IPA, which is the Res IPA. Our Beauty School Dropout. So originally when we opened, we were in Amber's Beauty College.
Yep.
That's actually the first thing I brought to the Guardian. They had a beer in Amber, and I forget what it was called now. Something not good, not a very good name.
Yeah.
And came in literally day one, and me being me was like, yeah, we're changing the name of that beer. And I didn't even work for these guys. It was just Buddy. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, we're changing it. And so we changed it to Beauty School Dropout. It was an old beauty school.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was an Amber Ale.
If you're from Muncie, you know
it was called Amber's. It just all made sense. And so Beauty School Dropout, our Amber Ale. Obviously a Grease reference there with the Beauty School Dropout. But that beer's available in cans all year round. And then our 5 Dots Vanilla Porter. And the 5 Dots is a little nod to to Shedtown.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the Shedtown dots, and so a little nod to where Jason and I grew up at. We do Charlie Cream Ale, which you saw in Ball State at the stadium and at the arenas. And we partner with them now, one of their sponsors for the sports season.
Yeah.
Now they can do alcohol sales, and so they're selling Charlie as well as a few other beers that they have in house there as well.
At Ball State Stadium.
Yeah, at the stadium and at the arena.
Growing up here, could you imagine you ever make a beer and be in the Ball State Stadium?
No.
Seriously, that's cool
There's
shit.
a lot of things I don't believe that you pinch yourself sometimes. And then one of our seasonals we just came out with this year. It's been a crowd favorite for years. This is actually the second beer that Kyle and I brought to the Guardian from our research and development. It's an old world style Goza, which is an old.
That's how you say
style
that,
beer.
Goza?
Yep, and it's a sour and salted beer, which sounds like a margarita to us. So we took the inspiration there and did the margarita Goza. We've offered that in draft for years. It's been such a huge hit for us that this year we decided to bring it out in cans, so that's available now. We're doing some more small batch can stuff. So, is
there a reason you chose cans? I had actually read this down in Asheville at Catawba Brewing, why they do it. So
absolutely. We actually did a virtual beer tasting last night, like a Zoom meeting with the company, and the same question came up. It's multifaceted. The biggest reason is it's the closest you can get to draft beer. So a keg is just a giant can. And so
that's what they say right on the wall in Catawba.
Yeah, so we go into the cans there. It's as close as you can get to draft. The number one enemy of beer is oxygen.
Yep.
And so
light, right?
Light too, but mainly oxygen. You don't want a beer to be oxygenated. It'll make it go stale quick. You'll get like a cardboard.
That's what people think of the being what do you call it when they use skunked?
Yes. Well, that's light struck.
So light struck is skunked.
It's skunked. Cardboard taste is what you get if it's oxygenated. You get cardboard, wet, papery.
Yeah.
We can talk off camera. I can tell you some beers. Global. I mean, they're national, not local. National beer companies, so their beers always taste like that, and because they're oxygenated and they're in bottles. And then bottles, even tinted bottles, make beers light struck. Light's the number two enemy.
Yeah.
That'll make a beer taste skunky. Like Heineken in the United States always tastes skunky.
Yeah, absolutely, they do.
Because they're in green bottles, and by the time it gets to market, it's already been light struck.
Yeah.
And so that's the main primary reasons. You get into some logistical stuff about like net weight.
Yeah.
Glass bottles weigh more.
Yeah.
Shipping's expensive.
Yeah.
You can ship more product in cans because aluminum's lighter.
Yeah.
You get into cost of aluminum compared to cost of glass.
Absolutely. That's what I'm running with the cold pressed coffees. We're looking at bottles. I got this one here that just the idea, right? The amber, but man, the bottle is your biggest expense.
Absolutely.
Is that the same in beer?
It's not. Our biggest expenses are brew house. I mean, first and foremost.
Yeah.
You're still paying on that. But as far as getting product to market, your canning and labeling, it's definitely one of the major expenses.
Yeah. Is there anything you can do about it? What have you found the best thing to
find? Some great companies out there that offer bulk pricing.
Yeah. Develop a relationship.
Right. We buy everything in bulk, so we're able to. Thankfully, and when we started out, we weren't.
Yeah.
We had to get to that point.
These are one of the things you talk about cash flow. Right?
Yeah.
It's not like you didn't know you could buy in bulk.
Right.
You just couldn't
afford it.
You just couldn't.
And so creating that product, getting out to market, to now we can buy cans in bulk. We can buy lids in bulk. We can buy labels in bulk.
So you guys can it right there in house?
We do.
Here in Muncie?
We use a company called Ideal Canning. They're on Plainfield, Indiana. They're a mobile canning unit, and the owner there, Del Goins, great guy. He was just kind of getting his business off the ground around the same time we kind of were. And this is what he does? He goes to service canning? Yep, and he kind of was beating the pavement. I think he had one other customer when he came into our place, and it was like, I'll make you a great deal, and I don't have the cash flow, man. I can't, if it's not a great deal unless it's free, is what I told him.
Right,
it's a testament to him, because he was like, I'll tell you what, man, I don't have any business, and I want to get off the ground, and I'll do your first 5 barrels for free if you buy the cans and the labels. And we were like, all right. And so we bought the cans and labels, and then we were able to take that money that we made off that first 5 barrels, literally took that cash flow, put it in a separate account. That went into our next canning run, and then the second canning run went into our third, into our fourth, and we still kind of do that.
Yeah, to go on that real quick too is one of the things I think that the brewery business works, and why you see it duplicated across the country, is because once you get it down, it's not a complex business model, right? Is you come down pretty quickly to this is how much it costs me to produce a can of beer, right?
Yep.
And from there, you can make real numbers, right? That's the due diligence we talk about. Say, okay, I have to sell X beers at X price, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And part of doing that is just like I said, well, you can't just take that money and run, right? You've got to go buy more beer.
Absolutely.
And that's hard to do.
It's never ending.
Yeah.
Like it's
right. It never goes away.
There's never going to be a day where we're Scrooge McDucking on a pile of money. We're always going to take that money, reinvest it back to the business to grow to the next phase.
When you say maybe one of the hardest lessons learned in business is that the pig is never full, right?
No.
I mean, you think maybe one day, and it just every time you get there, there's
more.
Oh yeah, fuck, I got to buy all my beer again,
Right?
Well, there's 10 grand, right?
We talked about this off mic when I first got here, and I kind of made a comment that you realize the fragility of all of this, of the society that we live in, and you think of these companies, and there are anomalies and there are exceptions to the rules, but you look at these companies like an Anheuser-Busch, we stick with just beer, or Miller Coors or whatever. You're seeing shortages of those. I was at liquor stores yesterday on sales calls, and like they're having trouble getting those beers because these plants are shut down. Even those large companies still operate under a pretty small profit margin.
Absolutely, they do.
So they can't sustain 2 months of being closed. They can't sustain 2 months without business any more than mom and pop can sustain it because they have more employees. They have
the
more
ratio
overhead.
is pretty much the same, right? Because
exactly.
There's not, and this is one of the things that people mistake in business, right? They think it's some magic thing, right? It's not. It's a very small, like you said, profit margin in the end is what it's all about.
Right.
Because you can go broke making a lot of money.
Right. Absolutely. And so if you have a multi-billion-dollar company, chances are you have a multi-billion-dollar debt or a multi-billion-dollar investment into that company
Payroll.
to make the multi-billion-dollar profits. And that goes back to being aware and a conscious choice of what you want to be. Do I want to be this multi-billion-dollar thing with this multi-billion-dollar price tag, with the multi-billion-dollar stress, or do I want to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, or do I want to be even less than that? Do I want to be, because there's definitely a market for that in whatever facet that you're into, from being the common market here on the corner compared to Kroger.
Absolutely. Village Pantry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be something we'd be aching to on the corner store idea.
Right. And so knowing exactly what it is you want it to be and being okay with that and having real goals, attainable goals.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of people come in with a real lofty idea.
Yeah.
You start a band when you're in high school and you're going to be the Beatles.
Yeah.
And it's like,
absolutely, we all did, right?
Yeah, I was, of course.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, man, you're going to be lucky to be the beautiful mess. You know what I mean? I mean, really.
That took me 20 years.
Exactly.
I couldn't,
Yeah.
It's so true. It's been in that way. Like I said, Jarrod and I met years ago in the rock world of mine. A cool spot because of the campus right downtown.
You were chubbier. I was skinnier. We both had full
That's true.
dark hair. Now
That's
I'm fat. You got more grays.
That's why I'm letting it go. I still got it. I figure one more time to grow it
That's
out.
the only thing I have going for me, man, is I still have a full head of hair. So.
And just what he said there, it's along the way, right? There's been a lot of growth, a lot of loss, a lot of learning, a lot of humbling, a lot of cool things.
Absolutely.
Man, like you said, sometimes I pinch myself and go, man, did I really get to do that?
Seems like a different life.
Yeah, it's like a different world, right? Like a whole different life. But just like we said, pursuing a passion, a mission that really drives me, I find a lot of fulfillment, right? That's what makes me love doing what we do.
Stick at itness, man.
Yeah.
Stick at it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was Walt Disney's thing. They said the thing that Walt Disney had more than anything was stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah.
Right? When his dude made up his mind.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Like at all costs.
That's one of the things you helped teach me back in the day.
Something my grandpa used to say to me when I was a little kid, and back to decision making. I was going to say what you're building, and I've kind of stuck with this for years. Is he's always say, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're not going to take your birthday from you. Yeah. And I think I've always kind of stuck with that. Like, I'm going to make a decision. Worst case scenario, I still have a birthday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Me too. That's what an old mentor taught me. He said, Mike, they can't eat you.
Exactly.
Just remember that.
They're not going to eat you.
And you may have to sit there and especially if you dream big, right? Like for me, is one of the things I realized along the way is sometimes when the failure would kick my ass is like, Mike, it's not like you're trying to make a little clubhouse down the road.
Right.
You say you want to change the world. Well, get ready for the world to kick you right back and say, hey,
embrace the suffer, man.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have some suffer, and you're going to have.
That's it.
Nothing's ever going to go your way all the time, man. You got to be able to know it's temporary and make a different decision the next time type of deal. So.
We talked about Michael Jordan, right? Got cut from the team of freshmen, and they talk about one of the things about him. He shot, and I don't know the exact number, but a stupid amount of free throws every day. Right. I mean,
I will get. I'm determined.
Yeah, suffering, right? Just sit out there one after the other.
Right.
But the rest is history, right?
Absolutely.
So for Michael, for MJ, right, as a couple old men, right? We grew up watching the man, right? I saw it live.
Right.
Again, Jarrod Case from Guardian Brewery. This is the first episode. This is what I hope to bring to you guys, some real value in the conversations about how to build things, whether that's a brewery, a band, a common market, right?
Whatever it is.
A mission, right? Whatever it is, you know. We were talking about it earlier. We said we weren't going to get into politics. I'm so glad we did. Right?
Yes, agreed.
But you talked about the fragility, and you said, and I said, what is you had mentioned that self-sacrifice, right? You talked about this.
Sure, self-serving.
And that most people are by nature, and we both agree we have this tendency
Sure.
also. But there's nothing more American than the idea of being self-sacrificing for the cause, and I don't think that's all true, right? In the books, that's altruistic and
Sure.
romantic. That's
Right.
not in reality to charge the front line of any.
No.
I don't care what the revolution is. That's not
Absolutely.
fun.
No, it's not.
But you talked about a kind of a dedication. You had a word or a saying you said that when I brought that up.
Oh, I have no idea what I said, Mike. I don't remember.
It was-
I know what we were talking about, and I think self-serving comes with a negative connotation. It's something that people hear, and you think it's always like this selfish regard or this self-indulgent me.
Yeah.
And like self-serving is not always bad. What we do as a brewery is self-serving. We wanted to create this thing that we wanted to have here that we could be a part of, but also with the self-serving side of it, there's a huge give back to the community.
Yeah.
Huge, just aside from having a place for other people to enjoy and giving
A
something.
place for me to come play once. Right?
Yeah,
I mean
all that stuff, as well as community partnerships. Like I talked about with Frank and the Caffeinery.
Yeah.
We've worked with the Queer Chocolatier,
Ball State. Yeah.
and United Way, and Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and the Tri Kappa Girls, and Muncie Street Outreach. And these are all things that we wouldn't have been able to do without this business.
A platform.
I wouldn't have a platform to do it. I wouldn't have an outlet to do that. And so it is self-serving in the regards that it's something we want to do, it's something we think is cool, and something we want to have for ourselves. But there's nothing wrong with that, and we're also sharing that with everybody else. And I think whatever it is that you're into, that self-serving attitude, people look at charity.
Yeah. There's a huge self-serving element to
Absolutely.
it. Right?
Even if it's humble.
And that's okay.
Even if it's humble, it makes you feel something. Even if you're not.
Right. No, that's okay.
Hopefully, you're not the person filming it and putting on Facebook that you did something great. But at the end of the day, it makes you feel good.
Right.
That you've done something for these people and you feel like you're doing your part.
Right. Even if it gives you worth in life, right? This is what you need to feel like it's okay.
Absolutely. Or you just feel like it's the right thing to do, and you're the person who's doing the right thing. There's still a self-serving aspect to that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think people maybe get caught in that guilt sometimes. And am I doing these things for the right reasons? Type of thing. You know.
And I would say that to end it off is, this for me is about my own personal growth, right? The mission, keeping inspired. But that's the idea of sharing it, right? Is with everybody else to take that from. But it's self-serve, right? Because, and it's the same thing with where we're sitting here for the podcast. This whole The Common Market is because I need a studio to record all my music.
Right.
This is just the facts.
Right.
In doing that, other musicians will also get to use this platform, as you said, to do all that and take the experience we bring to the table. And the market part is literally just about self-sustainability.
Sure.
Right? If the market pays for itself by the simple corner store, right, then I can focus on serving more artists.
And you're also serving a community that's a food desert.
Yeah.
You're also serving you're having employees that might not have a job elsewhere. There's a lot of stuff that goes along with that.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of good that comes out of as well from your self-serving.
Yeah, but all that being said, right, it's because I wanted this.
Absolutely.
Right? Just like you're right, I want a mission. I want a studio like this.
Right.
So one of my missions
most
is
things out there are that way. Somebody wanted
everybody's
it and
that
they
way.
did it.
This is the nature of life. This is literally why ancient stories work, right? You could read the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible. You could read old ancient Knights of the Templar text.
Sure.
The story's always the same, right? The hero's journey.
Right.
You have to go face the dragon.
Right.
The dragon's a bad dude, and you're gonna get burned.
Right. That's a fact, Jack.
But in the end, right, if you face the dragon, you stand the fire, right, eventually you get there. You get refined.
Right. You get something.
Yeah.
You get something.
You get something.
That's right. It might just be a good story. It might be all you get at the end. It's a good story.
There's a lot of good stories that make this up.
That's true, man.
So, Jarrod, for me, part of what you're doing is the same mission of making Muncie something we believe in, right? It's not, and maybe it is self-serving for both of you.
I already believe in Muncie. I wouldn't be here if I didn't.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I already believe in it. And I take this too. If I wasn't from Muncie, I'd believe in wherever else I was from,
right.
or wherever else I was.
Right, you just happen
have
to be in Muncie.
I have that mentality. If I do stuff.
Yeah.
I'm curious and I do stuff and wherever I'm going to be doing it. So.
This is part of that culture that makes me, love Muncie and be a part of it too, right? Is that it's a place where I can do these things, right? Just like you're saying, right? There's breweries and there's these things that often are like when docks closed. Why I left Muncie to go out and make some money playing music is because there wasn't these things here then.
Right.
In a lot and so it does. It makes a big impact, and that's what our call out to you. If you have a mission, get serious about it. Take your time. Do the diligence.
Yeah.
Right. Don't jump into it. But at some point, get serious and do it.
Sometimes jump into it.
Yeah. At some point, just do it and jump in. And again, you can get a hold of Jarrod online, all that stuff. I'm sure he'd be glad to answer
Absolutely.
any questions if you have something. Say, hey, want to connect from this interview. FMMission.com, I plan to start releasing these about one a week or so. And my next one, I've got Barry Banks from the Red Tail Land Conservatory coming. And I also have Dustin Ward, a friend of mine, who started a CBD business, had never heard of pyramid schemes.
Right.
And ran out to the world.
Multi-level
Multi-level marketing.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, he's in the CBD business. And so much like you, I'm going to ask you, how did this go, right? And he's going to tell us his story. He was a door guy.
Fell into it.
Fell into it.
Yep.
And but what I liked about him, I told him I'd watched him do it, and the same thing, the years over, kind of getting to know what you're about, and that is Dustin was about getting his family free.
Sure.
And I watched his journey online, and I started going, oh, Dustin's in the multi-level marketing business. I'm seeing him go through this, and I see him fight through it, right? Kind of the ass kickings that come with something
Sure.
like that. And so I want to pick his brain about how did you go? I mean, everybody would love a check in the mail for $2,500, $3,500 a month.
Of course.
Right?
It didn't come without work, though, and it didn't come without sacrifice.
Yes, and that's what we're going to talk to him about.
Sure.
Because for 2 years, it had to be embarrassing,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Hard to ask people.
Yeah.
You want to look at this? Fuck no. Get out of my house.
Exactly. Door-to-door pencil salesman, man.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with a door-to-door
There
business.
is nothing wrong with it. It's a tough gig. Mike, thanks for having me.
I very much appreciate it. To the Guardian Brew Co., all of you guys, it's really amazing stuff.
Thank you.
As Jarrod knows, I don't drink anymore. If it was, I'd be getting one of these two. I'd try the others, but these
He'll have
two,
them all. He can hand them out to his friends.
I will. I'll have some beers to give away. You can trade me good coffee. Every episode, because of my love for coffee and not drinking, I'm
Right.
trying different coffees. So we did the Death Wish. It's a very popular coffee. What'd you think
Good.
of it?
It was good. Sweet, not super roasty.
Yeah, much sweeter than I thought.
I tend to go for a darker coffee.
Me too. That's
But
what I
I
was.
definitely guzzled 2 glasses.
Yeah.
So 2 cups down.
So again, next week we'll probably get a. There's one. There's a old Chicago coffee company. You ever heard of this? So I just been looking up coffees, right? Looking up and trying to get them to send them here for the thing. And
Sure.
So the old Chicago Coffee Company. That'll be one of the next ones I do, and then we'll get into some local coffees, all kinds of stuff soon.
Cool.
But this is what I want to do. You always showcase people doing things, like you said.
Well, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you letting me have the honor of being your first guest.
Yeah.
It's all uphill from here, man.
Thanks y'all for tuning in. Go in and check it out, FMMission.com. And we got it.